question. I think we played that hand perfectly. I mean, we've got someone to chuck all their chips in on a turn, draw into 6 cards. That was ridiculous play on Pam's part, but she got paid off. However, again, in relation to the big blind, we're playing well over 100 big blinds, so we've taken a hit psychologically, but that's all. We're still in great shape. Now, if we just take 2 seconds to figure out why Pam's play was so bad. I mean, she was facing someone who raised under the gun. They fired out on the flop, they fired out on the turn, and then she decides to come all over the top with what on that board is 4th pair. I mean, what is she hoping for? She's only going to be called by a better hand. She's only beating a complete bluff when the chances of me bluffing there are pretty much 0%. I mean, that was a completely ridiculous play from Pam. Okay, blinds are now 50-100 and we're sitting with about 5k. King 7 suited in the big blind. Not a great hand. So I generally fold this one, but in this scenario it's playable. So it's folded around to the button, who is going to raise most of the time there. 50-100 is when people start moving their chips around slightly more. He decides to open for 300. Not a surprise, he could be opening with a wide range of hands there. The call from the small blind sort of induces my call really. I mean, there's 700 in the pot. It's only 200 to see a flop. Flop comes down 10 king 10. Now I flop top 2. The small blind checks it to me. Now I like checking here. Jose raised before the flop, and as mentioned earlier, the initial raiser is 75% of the time going to be c-betting the flop. So I know if I check here, he's c-betting with air a lot of the time. He's going to make a continuation bet with no hand at all really. If I bet out here and he hasn't got a hand, it's an easy fold for him. You know, why would he carry on with his ace rag? Whereas if I check, it just gives him a chance to make a bluff at the pot and just put a bit more in there for me. So I decide to check, and Jose does in fact lead out. He bets a lot more than I imagined. He bets the pot, so there's 1800 in there now. And he's only got 1900 behind. Besso folds, which is good for me. Indicates he's not slow playing a 10. If he flatted there, I'd be a bit suspicious about my hand, but I'm pretty sure I've got the best hand here, and I think it's an easy shove here for me. I mean, if Jose's got a rag ace, you know, I want him to pay to try and hit that ace. So I decide to shove, and he mouths off in the chat and decides to fold. Now, I think that was a good play on my part. If I bet there, I'm pushing him off most hands, whereas if I check, his bet not only allows me to see if he's got a 10, because obviously he's not going to be betting the pot with a 10, but also allows me to see what Besso decides to do. When the small blind and big blinds involved in a pot, you know, it's very hard to narrow their holdings down, so he could have anything there, and he may well have a 10. But he folded, and I was pretty sure I had the best hand. Okay, so we pick up King 7 suited, again in the big blind. It's folded around to the button, who, with no surprise, puts in a raise of 500. Pepe calls from the small blind. So there's 1200 in the pot here. Now I opt to do something a bit creative here. This was what's known as a squeeze play. I make it 2600. The hands building up to this hand, you know, Verbia has been raising his button pretty much every time, and Pepe for some reason has been calling every time, so this is pretty much a blind move for me. I'd probably be doing this with any 2 cards. And it's called a squeeze play because Verbia has to make his decision not knowing what Pepe is going to do. So he opts to fold, and then Pepe, who's probably got a marginal holding there because he'd be re-raising with any decent hand, opts to fold, and I pick up the pot and an extra 1200 to my stack. So I pick up pocket jacks for the first time in the tournament. Pocket jacks is a lot of people's nemesis hand. People don't know how to play them. People sometimes overplay them too much, and jacks are quite often people's final hands in a tournament because they just play them too hard and get overcommitted really. I play them cautiously. I mean, here I've got position, so if I am facing a raise, you know, I'm happy to see a flop calling a raise. So if we let the hand play out, it's folded round to Bad Boy Tom. It makes it 900 to go. There's 1350 in the pot here. So if I raise, I'm pretty much committing a third of my stack pre-flop with jacks, which I don't want to do at this stage in the tournament. You know, I've got a great stack at the moment, so I'm in position. So if it gets to me without being re-raised, you know, I'm going to call and I'll see a flop in position against a big stack with a chance at winning a big pot without committing myself, because if a queen, king or ace come on the flop, you know, I'm going to be put to a tough decision. So it also enforces pot control. And now we see our flop top set. This is a perfect position for me. I'm in position with top set, and luckily for me, Bad Boy Tom opts to bet, so I see no point in raising there. And again on the turn he fires again. I'm happy to just call and get it in on the river, and he bets out, so I'm going to move all in, and he shows bottom set there. So the hand played itself really, but going back to my earlier pot control comment, I mean, for me to re-raise in that position, you know, I'm committing a third of my chips, and there's no real need to do that with a hand like jacks. So I pick up the pot, and it puts me at almost 20k here, with blinds still at 150, 300. Now we pick up king queen suited, in middle position. A very playable hand here with our stack, so it's folded round to us, so I make it 900 to go here, and we instantly get a call from boy. Everyone else lays their hands down. Now this flop, now the hand is actually going to play itself. I raised the pot, so I'm going to be continuation betting, as I've talked about previously in this video. Now, I'm simply asking boy, does he have an ace? If he does, he's going to call or raise the bet. If he doesn't, he's going to lay it down. So I don't want to put in too much. I think a bet of 900 is more than enough to ask the question. We minimise our losses if he does have the ace. So I bet out 900, and on this occasion he doesn't, and he lays his hand down, and we pick up a nice pot there with king high. So I've picked up ace-4 suited here, playing about 20k in the big blind, with blinds at 153. Now one thing to notice, when blinds start increasing, late position raises become more frequent. People are looking to pick up the 450 in the pot pre-flop, and it's folded around to Donkey King, who's playing 10k, and he makes it 800 to go. So I decide to peel from the big blind with my stack. So we see a flop, and it's pretty much missed me here. I've got a backdoor flush draw, so I'm pretty much playing ace high here. Now I know if I check in this position, Donkey King is going to be betting no matter what. He's going to be continuation betting any number of hands here. You know, his ace, ace king, ace queen. So I opt to check, and he leads out. Now I decide to ask a very serious question of Donkey King here. Now I decide to put in a raise because he's continuation betting pretty much most of the time on this flop. So I decide to put in an interesting raise of 3,100. Now the reason I raise this much is because this raise is inadvertently putting Donkey King all in on this hand. For example, if we just look at his stack, if he calls here, he's going to be leaving about 6,000 behind, with about 8,000 in the pot. So if he has got ace king or ace queen, he knows that if he calls here, he's going to be committing all of it.